We're going to switch now from rappers beating the crap out of each other to system harmony. This is the Game Link cable from Nintendo, and it allows your Game Boy Advance and GameCube to talk to each other, share information, so you can play games that have integration with each other. What'd you think of this?
It works.
It does work.
It's purple.
It's $10.
There are a couple games out there, like, for example, Rayman 3.
Right.
So if you buy the Rayman 3 game for both systems,
correct,
you can unlock some levels on the Game Boy Advance version.
If you own both systems and you're a fan of all that software, you're going to love integrating all this stuff. I really, really enjoy this thing.
There you go.
And it's one of Nintendo's biggest plans for both systems right now, is to see how much they can integrate everything. And I think it's a great direction for the company. And it's the only company out there that's doing anything like this.
That's very cool, and I definitely recommend the cable based on that.
I'm going to recommend it as well. On the positive side, the cable only costs $10. It's a great way to get more gameplay out of games you might already own, and this is an awesome way to carry around information from your favorite home games with you all the time.
On the negative side, it's purple, and if you don't like purple, you're probably not going to like this.
Stick around. We're going to take a look at Zone of Enders 2 for the PlayStation 2 after this.
2222.
Big Treasures brought to you by EB Games.
All right, I got one here, Soviet Strike for the PlayStation, right? You know, you can still pop this in, put it in your PlayStation 2. Nothing better than bombing commies in your, like, war freaking helicopter, right? Okay, well, Soviet Strike was really cool. It came out from EA. They did all these strike games back in the Genesis, and they were all, you know, kind of 2D. Well, this was the first one to actually be 3D. This game was all about collecting enough armor and, like, fuel and stuff to get through the whole level. So it's not just about, you know, bombing stuff. You actually have some resource management you got to deal with. There's a lot of cool missions as well. You can do, you know, there's missions where you have to pick up people, missions where you have to protect people, missions where you have to waste everything that moves on the whole entire screen. So that's neat. But the other cool thing about this game was that the cinematics were actually live action. Now, normally, you know, we hate that kind of stuff, but these were actually really good, very high production quality. It was like watching like little mini movies in between levels. Totally worth it.
And remember, if you do not think, you will not win.
Now, Nuclear Strike is another game you can pick up that came out right after this, also for the PlayStation 1. Now, we're hoping that EA brings this series back to the new consoles, but until then, we can still play them in our PlayStation 2 because they're PlayStation compatible.
All right, we're back. We're going to talk now about Zone of Enders 2, the second runner from Konami for PlayStation 2. What'd you think of this one, man?
Well, you know, Zone of Enders, the original game, came out on the PlayStation 2, and it was supposed to be this big, epic, amazing game. They spent a lot of time and money on it.
Cool.
It was done by Hideo Kojima,
right,
who was the guy who invented Metal Gear Solid.
And the big news with the first game was that it came with a demo for Metal Gear Solid 2.
And hence, what the game actually really became known as is that game that people bought so they could get the Metal Gear 2 trailer. So it wasn't as big a game as they thought it was going to be. Now we have the second iteration of the game, and they fixed a lot of the problems. A lot of the problems in the first game was that it was very repetitive.
Yes,
you just pretty much did the same thing over and over and over again.
You were just running around shooting at other robots, and that was it. You know, lots
now
of robot
this game
combat
has taken a complete opposite end of the spectrum, and like every other mission, you're doing something completely different. You know?
Which I didn't mind. I thought that was very cool. I loved fighting the swarms of little ships that were coming at you and picking up other guys and trying to lead them to safety. I thought that the visuals in this game were outstanding, but it didn't feel like a giant robot game to me because the action is...
Did it feel like a little robot game?
No, it's just the action is so much faster.
Medium-sized robot game?
No, it felt like little dudes in suits with big metal armor and lots of like weapons on their arms and stuff like that.
You'll never hear me complain about a game being too short. I'm not a big believer. I say, look, if this game's great, I don't care if it's 15 hours or 40 hours, it's a great game. But this game, I gotta mention something about the length, because you can literally finish the whole game in one sitting, way under 10 hours.
I didn't mind the length of the game. The graphics are sensational in this thing.
The reason that people are gonna love this game the most, I think, even more so than the actual gameplay, is the fact that they have created some amazingly high quality anime-style cutscenes.
Cutscenes are fantastic.
Which, if you're into anime, you're gonna love, love, love this stuff.
Only problem with those, the script has been translated straight from the Japanese, and some of the dialogue is so painful, and the voice acting isn't that
terrible.
great either.
What are you doing on this ship anyway?
If anything happens to my pals on Callisto, you'll pay.
I didn't kill them.
The anime stuff is beautiful to look at. The story is kind of cool, but the meat of this game is all the insane action, all the different, you know, you fly inside of huge battleships, and then later on you actually blow them out of the sky. You've got planet-based battles that you deal with in canyons and stuff. You've got little swarmer dudes that come at you. You've got people to protect.
What's up with those big honking icons on everything, though?
You need
They
that.
get in the way.
But you need it because
Why do
there's
you
so
need
many
that?
enemies on screen at the same time.
It's like the target thing.
Yes.
Couldn't they have like made a little thing or turned them different colors?
No.
They had a big square thing. It gets in my way.
You press the trigger button and you can cycle through the different.
I know,
the
but it
different
gets in
dudes.
my way.
You need it, man.
It's like a big frame around
Otherwise,
every
especially,
character has a frame.
You'd be shooting.
Takes the realism out of it
You'd
for
be
me.
shooting at like a cliff or something.
You know how real I like to play my big
Giant
flying
robot game?
games? I want realism. How about the lead characters?
It's Dingo!
Oh, you didn't like Dingo?
Dingo Egret.
Dingo
What did they?
Egret.
Would they sit down and they said, let's take the two funniest animals we can think of, throw them together. A dingo's pretty funny, an egret's pretty funny. Let's call him Dingo Egret. They could have called him Emu Platypus.
Right.
That would have been funny.
That would have been pretty funny. I love Zone of the Enders too. I'm going to give it 8.5 out of 10.
I'm giving it a 7.
On the positive side, the action in this game is unbelievable. There's so much activity, it's going to make you dizzy. The graphics are some of the best we've ever seen on the PlayStation 2. And you're not going to believe how cool the anime cutscenes are in this game. Amazing stuff.
On the negative side, if you're not into big, huge, honking metal robots, then this game may not be for you. I thought the gameplay was way too short. I mean, you can pretty much finish this game in one sitting. And finally, who wants to play a guy named Dingo Egret?
Today on Judgment Day, we took a look at Rainbow Six 3 Raven Shield for the PC. This is one amazingly intense tactical shooter, but the storyline is a little bit weak. On the Xbox, we took a look at Capcom versus SNK 2 EO. Now, there's more than 40 fighters in this game, and you can play it on Xbox Live, but if you're like Tommy, you're going to think these graphics are really outdated. On the GameCube, we looked at Def Jam Vendetta. This is a fighter with incredible graphics, but you kind of have to be into wrestlers or rappers to really appreciate this one. For the PlayStation 2, we looked at Zone of the Enders 2, The Second Runner. This giant robot game's got amazing graphics, insane action, but the lead character is named Dingo. In hardware, Tommy and I looked at the Game Boy Advance cable for the GameCube. You can add a lot more gameplay possibilities to your GameCube and Game Boy Advance games with this cable, but just be aware, the cable is purple. On the Game Boy Advance, I reviewed Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. This portable game recreates the console experience beautifully, and it links up to the GameCube version of the game for even more rewards. Well, that's the end of the show. We're going to see you guys next time on Judgment Day. Thanks for watching.
Sorry.
You are brutal.
I'm
9
sorry.
out of 10. This is a great game. Awesome Xbox game.
No,
It doesn't have
No,
beautiful
they didn't update-
rendered 3D girls with bouncing boobs. So what are you going to give Capcom versus SNK 2 EO?
A 10.
I'm going to give it a 3. No, what are you going to give it?
It's Dingo!